Awesome. All right, you guys, welcome back to EXP Family Tree Wednesday Masterminds. Today, we have a really exciting guest. It's exciting for me because Ryan Kyle has recently became a partner of mine here at EXP. And we've known each other for over a year now from social media, but I followed him. I was in his Facebook group. I just really loved the way that he was helping people and coaching agents and his perspectives on a lot of things. And we got to know each other, and the rest is history. And so what we're going to do today, as always, is we want you guys to engage however you can, ask questions, raise your hand, chat in the chat box. If you're watching live stream in EXP Family Tree, you can do the same. We will monitor that. Of course, this remains live streamed in EXP Family Tree. So if there's other people you think need to hear this, tag them in the live stream so they can come back and watch it later. We'll also have it up on my YouTube channel within 24 hours, so you can share it with people who are not with EXP. Because of course, we're always trying to bless people with information, no matter what company they're at. So that is our philosophy here within the Growth Collaborative and EXP Family Tree. So thanks you guys for being here. And Brian, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to do a little introduction. Besides the fact that I've known him for a year and I followed him on social, Ryan has some fun things in his background. First thing to note is that he's an experienced real estate agent who is coming out of the Austin, Texas market, and found himself moving across country to a new area for family reasons. And he is now putting his roots down with his family in Utah. And so he's going to be sharing his story of starting anew again as almost like a new real estate agent. It's not new, but it's in a new area with a new brokerage, which is going to be a really fun journey. So Ryan, when you get a chance, maybe chat your Facebook group in the chat box. So if people want to join and follow along with you, they can. But Ryan has spent a lot of time helping part-time agents or agents wanting to transition to full-time, or maybe doing it as a side gig, in increasing their wealth through real estate. And he's been really successful. In fact, he's had coaching programs, paid coaching programs, and he's really poured into a lot of agents in this capacity. And that's why today the call is about how do you make a full-time income selling real estate part-time. Now, look, whether you're actually doing another job or you just don't want to work 50 hours a week, this information is for you. And the market has shifted, or maybe you've moved to a new market and you're finding yourself doing something else too. This is just going to be a really great conversation for you, because that's really what Ryan specializes in. Coming over to EXP, Ryan is not doing the paid coaching anymore. He's really coming from a place of just wanting to help people. He fits so well into our culture that way. And he's going to continue to grow his business and help people locally in Utah, as well as across the nation, in a new way. And that's what we're excited to partner with Ryan on. So today he's coming from contribution. He's here just to offer some of this information to us. So please engage, ask questions, without further ado, I'm going to let you have access to share your screen, Ryan, if you want to. Whatever you want to do, however you want to present would be amazing. And again, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Cari. And
wait. And Ryan has 4 children under the age of 8, and they took a year-long, cruise around the United States in an RV with 4 children under the age 8, which that in of itself, if you're not impressed by anything I said, should totally impress you. It impresses me.
I was going to say, you left out the most interesting part.
I know. I get excited about all the things that you do for the realtors, and then I forgot about that, although it was the most impressive to me.
Yeah, I'll touch base on that. I actually am going to put on the screen some slides that I put together as I was taking on coaching agents, because it really walks through. It's kind of my introductory training of where I came from, what I did as a part-time agent, how that worked for me, and what were the key things that I learned. So I'm going to pop that up on the screen, and I'm going to walk through it. But by any means, I don't want to kill you guys with slides. It just makes it a little bit more digestible. If you have a question at any point and you want to stop it, or you want to ask that, feel free to interrupt me at any time. It just gives us a way to kind of navigate through this. Put that on for you. All right, see that? There it goes. Okay. All right, so here's a little bit about my story. As she mentioned, I did hit the road for a year traveling in my RV, and it was really part-time real estate that made that a possibility for me. So I moved to Texas. I started doing real estate about 6, 7, 8 years ago now, and was doing that at the time I got my license. I had been laid off was looking for full-time work, decided to get my real estate license, and as luck would have it, I found a job as soon as I got my real estate license. And so I had to figure out what was I going to do and how was that going to look. And I decided, well, I need the full-time income right away. I'll do real estate part-time and we'll see where that goes. And at the time, I had 4 kids. So I had just had my first child when I first started doing real estate. And then I had 3 kids in the time that I was doing that. And one of that was a set of twins. Along with that, I was also, of course, working the full-time job. I had church responsibilities that I was trying to do. I had, of course, had to take my wife out on date nights. And at the same time, I was able to ramp myself up. In year 1, it was about 6 transactions. And by year 2, I was averaging 12 or so transactions a year, which is ultimately, depending on what the houses are selling for, my particular market was $75,000 to $100,000 a year as a supplemental income to my full-time job. And it was hard the first year. The first year was really tough because I came into a real estate industry that has a lot of information and a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas about things and a lot of people trying to sell you leads and all this stuff you've got to wade through and figure out what actually works. And I think that's why the statistics about real estate agents falling out of real estate in the first 2 years are so high. Something like 80% of agents or something along those lines. So through a lot of trial and error, I went through and I was able to figure out what to do and what kind of the main key points are. And so I'm just going to walk through a little bit of that for you guys. There's basically 3 fundamental pieces. Leads are a huge thing, and you guys are going to hear a lot of people talk about leads and try to share their opinions on all the different ways you can generate leads. As a part-time real estate agent, assuming you have full-time obligations, if you're part-time and you've got all day, you technically could be full-time. This is a little bit of a different story, but for people who are part-time and have very limited time to work with in order to manage their real estate business, understanding what leads are going to be relevant for you and what leads aren't and where you should invest your time as far as lead generation, where you shouldn't, is a very important thing. And we'll walk through that in a little more detail. The second piece is mastering your time. Obviously, you've got limited time. You have to be very specific on what you spend your time on. And you've got to make sure that what you're spending your time on is going to work for your business. And finally, understanding how your brand links into all of it and what that means for you. We tend to see a lot of agents try to be everything for everybody. And in most cases, when you're starting out, and as well as a part-time agent, that doesn't work very well. It will cause you to spend a lot of time on things that don't produce results. So we'll go touch base on that a little bit as well. So when we talk about leads and we talk about what are the best leads, where should I invest my time as far as leads are concerned, one of the things you have to keep in mind, the best leads, the hottest leads are the leads that know you, the leads that like you, and the leads that trust you. These are the people that are going to do business with you. So when we talk about lead generation, there's all kinds of cold lead generation tools out there, from Zillow leads to people that are trying to sell you all kinds of leads. Your broker might even provide some level of leads, and they could be cold to warm. Like they may have a genuine interest in real estate. They might even be ready to buy right then, but they don't know you, they don't like you yet, and they don't trust you yet. And those are all things you have to invest time and energy into before you're able to get those transactions and get those clients working with you and willing to either list their home with you or potentially have you represent them as a buyer. So these 3 things being as important as they are, as a part-time real estate agent, you've got to go in and focus your energy and your effort on the people you already know, that already like you, and that already trust you. That's where your first and fastest transactions are going to come from. That's where you're going to have to spend the least amount of energy trying to build those things and be able to get the transactions the fastest. And usually that will be enough to generate enough referral business to where you don't have to do any cold lead generation as a part-time agent. Most of the individuals I coached did no cold lead generation. There's just not a need for it. You can do it if you have availability and bandwidth, but most of it is focusing on your warm leads. And the reason for that is you're going to spend a lot of energy in your cold leads, quickly burn out, quickly feel like you're not being a success because there's so much work involved there. and you're going to be very quickly overwhelmed with all the other things you're trying to manage. So we're going to skip the cold lead piece and start focusing specifically on warm leads. So there's a lot of different ways. I'm not going to go into the specific program I developed as to how to nurture all these types of things, but let me summarize for you what it means to try to connect to these type of people. One of the first things, let me see if I've got this in here. I don't, but one of the first things is really understanding, and we're going to get into this when I talk about brand, really understanding who you are, what you like, what things you're interested in, and what people you naturally connect to. So these people are going to be the people that are going to know, like, and trust you the fastest. We tend to go out and represent this image as real estate agents that are not authentic because we feel like we've got to be this type of person, whether it's, hey, I've got to be this very professional, I got to be in a suit, or I've got to look a certain way and I've got to act a certain way. Obviously, professionalism is important, but having a sense of identity is equally as important. So there's some internalizing and asking yourself some questions about what are my interests? What type of person am I? What type of things am I interested in? What type of things can I relate to? And that common ground that you're going to share with other people is going to be essential in understanding who you focus your energy on, because those are the people that are going to connect with you the fastest and be the most responsive to the things you're trying to do, and the most likely to ask you questions in order to try to get your help. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of trying to blast that you're a real estate agent. I think it's important that people know. So celebrating events like, hey, I just got my license, I'm available, I'm in this really good training program, I've got a coach, and I'm learning a lot about real estate and I'm happy to help. Posting market statistics, getting community groups on Facebooks where you can post events and be an expert within the communities that you relate to, all that type of stuff. And there's a lot of information out there on that, but natural organic efforts is what I would recommend the most. So that includes, just in casual conversations, being able to say, hey, when people ask you what you do, if you have a full-time job, you should always answer, I'm a real estate agent, not I work for XYZ. That will in and of itself spark a conversation about what you do. Another thing you can do is ask people what they do for a living as you're talking to them, or ask them how their job's going. The process of asking people how their work is going will quite often cause them to ask you how your work is doing. And then you can let them know you're in real estate, throw some interesting information about what you're doing at the time, and potentially, probably 9 times out of 10, somebody has a real estate question or something they've been thinking about that's real estate related. And they'll likely throw that out to you, which gives you an opportunity to show and demonstrate that you know what you're doing and what you're talking about. The other thing that I would encourage you to think about is how much time you spend on social media. So one of the things we talk a lot about is being intentional. That'll be a master time. Being intentional about what you're doing and how you're spending your time. Let's actually dive into that now. So we understand from a lead perspective, it's best to work with the people you're already connected to, right? In your sphere of influence. And most importantly, the people you already know, like, and trust. Now, what do you do with your time and how do you manage your time? There are so many things you can waste time on in the real estate business that it's not shocking to me that so many people get overwhelmed or discouraged or don't make money being real estate agents and end up getting out of the game. It is a huge industry, and the amount of tools available, the amount of information available, the different types of strategies that you can use in order to get into real estate and try to grow your business you're unable to count them. There's so many of them. So what do you spend your time on and what matters the most? You only have 24 hours in the day. Most likely, most of your 24 hours are already being used up by something else. So here is the 3 things I recommend you really focus on, and we'll break these down a little bit. Number 1, you got to be more intentional with the things you do every day. So what does that mean? And we'll dive into this, but I was talking about social media. If you're already spending an hour, 2 hours on social media a day, whether it's doing real estate related stuff, whether it's just conversing with friends, be intentional about that time and start to understand and look at where in that time that I'm already spending on social media can I take advantage of the exposure, the interactions, and try to get real estate conversations going, or add value to the people that are in my network and show them I can be a resource for real estate related questions. Statistics on markets, being able to show interesting trends in the market, information about specific neighborhoods, tips about what they can do if they're thinking about selling their house, all these things, which there's a lot of tools out there to provide those types of posts. Those types of interactions, as long as they're authentic and genuine in the way you approach them, then they work very well. There's a guy that I connected with on Facebook that his market and his niche is homes with big garages, because he races cars and he's a big car fan. And so all of his stuff on Facebook is totally related to people who like cars, people who like big garages and have projects that they need big garages for. And that's the thing that's important to him and that he relates to. And so he's trying to connect with people that share that same interest. And he's built an entire brokerage off of it as a result of that. And it's been very successful for him. And so those are things that are important in understanding kind of who you are and how to connect. So when you're on social media, if you're already connecting with those kind of people, what are things that are real estate related that would be important to them or relevant to them that you can share on your social media? The other thing is only spending time on high return activities. This is very convoluted, right? What's a high return activity? What's going to give me the best results? That is, we're going to dive into that a little bit, but you need to be in the mindset to begin with of, is this producing results or is it not? And how long? Direct mail marketing is a very long term game from a marketing perspective. And that's not something that is going to be a very good use of your time as a part-time agent, in my opinion. People will argue that. In my opinion, that's a lot of energy you're going to put in and a lot of money you're going to put into a long-term result that could come from getting referral business instead of mass blasting neighborhoods. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then automate and build systems as much as you can. Fortunately, the real estate business has a ton of tools to make your real estate business systematic. EXP, having come on with them, the tools that you get access to is incredible. And the ability you have now can be overwhelming if you're not guided through that correctly, but there's so many tools, and well, not so many, but there's just the right tools in order to get you what you need to make that business run seamlessly. So those of you who are in EXP, and some of the other brokerages have similar tools, I just haven't seen it done as well as EXP does. Those tools will be essential. You have to understand them. You got to know how they work for you and how they can save you time and make, most importantly, make the experience for the customer consistent. If it's consistent, they will be happier. They will refer business to you and you'll get a lot more work. So briefly go into being intentional. This again is leveraging your social interactions you're already having on social media. Add value when you are doing that. Ask questions, listen to what people say. These are real estate based questions, usually like, hey, what do you think the market's going to do? What are the things that are important to you if you're thinking about selling your home? What are the questions you might have? And then listen to what people are saying. Really pay attention. And I'm not just talking about real estate here. I'm talking about in any conversation that you have, really hone your skills on listening. If you listen closely enough, you're going to see where real estate conversations can come into play. And most importantly, you're going to have a relationship that you're building. People, the way you build trust is by listening. It's really that simple. If you're listening, you're storing that information and you're able to then show that you listen, that will build trust and grow the relationships where you are. As a part-time real estate agent, don't extend your reach. You already have daily interactions with people. You're already socializing with people. Chances are these people have a real estate need or know somebody who does. The more real estate conversations you have during that process, the more likely you are to connect with them and get questions. I heard somebody go off mute. Is there a question? Continuing on. So the other piece is be smart. This goes along with adding value. The essential piece to building trust and having people believe that you're an expert is you've got to self-educate. So you have to take some time to be looking at market statistics, not just regurgitating them and taking them and posting them on your social media. This is probably one of the things I see realtors do that annoys me the most is you post real estate statistics, but you don't explain what they mean. Most people don't translate or understand what it means if there's what the average household median household price is, or what absorption rate is, or what it means to be in a seller's market versus a buyer's market, or what it means that this many homes sold in this neighborhood, or how that differs from last year. Or like, the people want to hear an explanation of here's the statistic, here's what that's saying, here's the story that it tells. That allows you to educate people. The good part about this, when I tell all my clients, is you do not have to be a real estate expert to look like a real estate expert. Okay? You do have to have the mindset of making sure you don't say things unless you know them. But as you're learning yourself, as you're investing time and understanding and learning market statistics and knowing what the market's doing, or knowing the laws behind real estate, or whatever the case may be, as you're learning it, you can present it. As you become knowledgeable about it, you can share it. So as you're doing your own journey of self-educating, take those pieces of nuggets and those things that you learn and put them out there to the world. Share them in conversations, share them on social media. Say, hey, did you guys know? Here's an interesting piece of information. Did you know this statistic means this? Did you know this was happening in this particular market? Things of that nature. Being able to tell the story that goes with the numbers is important. The other thing that, when we talk about spending time on the right things, and most of you will hear this, and I'd be surprised if you don't know this, but listings are your bread and butter. Listings are gold. Number one, they take the least amount of time. As a part-time agent, you don't have to go show houses. You don't have to be out there in the nights and the weekends trying to get somebody into a home. It can be done for the most part on your time, obviously with the exception of what the client needs are. The listings will not only be easier for you to manage from a time perspective, most listings can lead to buyers as well. They'll lead to 1 to 2 buyers if you do them correctly. You'll get buyer leads out of listings. So you want to try to focus your effort and energy, if you're going to do any kind of marketing, which should be very limited. You want to really try to be organic in what you're doing as a part-time agent. But if you are going to do any marketing, it should be listing related. If you're going to go find people, it should be listing related. Doesn't mean you can't take buyers. Doesn't mean buyers aren't good. It just means that the more listings you have, the more time you're going to have to do real estate. The more buyers you have, the less time you're going to have to do real estate, and the more overwhelming and difficult it will be. We talked about leads. We talked about knowing the return on investment. We talked about most of this stuff. So systems, being systematic. This is the other piece that I see varying levels of comprehension in as far as agents are concerned. You want to try to automate your system for 2 reasons. Number one, you want to be able to create a very consistent experience for all of your clients, that it runs the right way. It can be tweaked to be made better, and it will continue to work that way for everybody. And as well, it's going to be a time saver. So there's all kinds of tools you can use out there. Most of the transaction management tools have template capability. You should be building templates. You should have forms that are pre-populated where appropriate. And obviously the disclaimer there is be careful and make sure you're pre-populating and then checking those things, not just assuming that they're right every time you do a contract. But creating templates, having pre-filled forms, using a CRM is a really valuable tool, primarily because it's the relationship management, right? Staying on top of all of the network connections that you have can be troubling and difficult, and you don't want anybody to feel forgotten. So CRMs can do a wide breadth of things depending on what you're using. And they have everything from free tools in Google that go right into your Gmail and create a pipeline and do things to expansive tools. And there's a long list of them. I'm not going to name any particular one, but there's a lot of them out there. And many of them will automate texts, email follow-up, even remind you of phone calls when you need to do phone calls and some of that type of stuff. There's a great tool out there, Send Out Cards, and I think there's another couple other ones that will allow you to build automated cards that look close enough to being handwritten and not marketing. That can be personalized, don't need a lot of real estate related information on them, if any, but can manage sending cards out a couple times a year in order to stay connected to people. You can even attach gifts. So like if it's a birthday, you've got their birthday in the system, it'll send a card and a birthday gift to them. And these are things that are autopilot. You've got people in your network that you've decided, hey, I want to stay close to these guys. I relate to them. They know me. They trust me. They like me. I want them to think of me when it's time to be a realtor. I'm going to send them a card 4 times a year to let them know I'm thinking about them. Things that can be very easily automated. And so you want to look into those systems and understand what they are. This happens to be an area where I've got a lot of experience. I've probably tried and used and tested almost every real estate system I can put my hands on. So if you ever have questions in this, let me know. I can share with you my experience on some of these things and also what to look for. Obviously, so I'm not going to go through these in detail just for the sake of time and so I don't bore you guys. But obviously, you need to have a good relationship management system. We talked about that. Transaction management system, and this will be a big part when you talk about which brokerage do I use. The systems they have in place are going to be very relevant to which system you should, or which broker you should pick. If they don't already have the tools in place to help you make everything work seamlessly, then you're going to have to do a lot of work and you're going to have to invest a lot of money on your own to get those systems figured out and in place, which can be troublesome. Here's just a small sample of some of the ones I've tried. These are all ones that I've used personally and know a little bit about. They all have value in their own way. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me. All right, so to kind of wrap up the final thing, and then we'll open up for questions and check time. Mastering your brand. This is something I see a lot of agents who get into real estate and they have this preconception of what a real estate agent looks like, right? We've all seen, and this is, hopefully I don't offend anybody here, but there's a lot of brokerages that have the black jacket, right? The women are wearing usually some kind of black jacket too. You go on their page, all the pictures look very similar. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very professional, but it was traditional. Like that's come from tradition, right? Real estate agents have looked a certain way for a very, very long time. And so we tend to come into real estate with this view of this is what I have to look like and act like and be like as a real estate agent, right? Real estate agents drive Cadillacs, right? They've got their magnets on the side of their car. There's all these things that we think about when we think about real estate agents, at least the people that are older, maybe. I could be alone in that, who knows? But the idea here is there's not a set way you have to look. Now, if you go to a bigger brokerage as a part-time agent, some of these expectations may exist. So when you're determining which brokerage to go with, this is a big piece of it as well. How much of your own personal brand can you bring in? When I started as a part-time agent, I went independent because I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. I didn't want anybody dictating how I did my business. And so I picked somebody that I knew. It was a very small brokerage. They took a very small fee and I could go do everything else on my own and manage it the way I wanted to manage it. And that worked for me. Some people, I've got a very good friend that I got into real estate that he needs more structure than that. So he went into a bigger brokerage to start. He got some of the training he wanted. He got some of the structure he wanted. And he's now moved into an independent broker to make it a little bit easier. Being at EXP, obviously, you've got a great opportunity to be you and incorporate anything you want into your real estate business. So I think a little bit of a plug for EXP. They do a great job at giving you that level of freedom. But this is important. So this is a quote I found, I think it was actually on NAR. When asked about the most important trait they looked for in an agent, prospective home sellers chose professional reputation most often. So obviously this is a plug for their National Association of Realtors. But what I want to kind of point out here is when a customer or a client is talking about professional reputation, what they're talking about is your brand. Right? And being professional has to be part of that. That's a no-brainer in real estate. If you're not professional, you're not going to have clients, you're not going to have referrals. You need to be professional. You are a professional, a real estate professional. But what people are saying is they want to have that brand. They want to know who you are, what you're about, and can they trust you and depend on you as they're trying to do something that's a very important step in their life. So here's kind of the 5 things you need to focus on. Number 1, you got to be real. And my clients that I've coached, I've told, not just be real to outside people. You first have to be real to yourself. You have to be very honest about, here's the things I like. If you're somebody who likes to dress up in costumes and go to these big parties with people in costumes, all the power to you, nothing wrong with that. That's your thing. You can bring real estate into that and make that how you relate to people and show them you understand what they are and build a whole real estate business around that. And you will probably be the primary real estate agent dealing with that group of people that likes that type of thing. And there's any number of different situations you can look at that might be a somewhat extreme one. But my point is that it doesn't matter what is important to you. Likely, there are people that are also interested in the same thing, and they're going to relate to you, and your brand needs to represent that and focus on that first. You'll get residual people out of doing that because you'll get a lot of referrals from people that are like, hey, I trust this guy. I've worked with him. I know him. He's amazing. Go use him. And so you'll naturally reach outside of that circle. But you've got to really take time to ask yourself some serious questions about who you are, and what you want to be. For me, I have always had this, I feel good in a button-down shirt with my cowboy boots on. I was in Texas, it fit. And so that was kind of my look and my feel. Every time I went out to show a home, that's what I wore. I had my jeans, my boots, and my button-down. And that worked for me. It made me feel more authentic. It allowed me to relate to the people that I interact with naturally. And so that became part of my brand. So you want to really focus in on kind of this self-discovery piece and know what you're about. And in marketing, if any of you have read any marketing books, having a story is extremely important, right? Like, what's your story? Why are you in real estate? Why are you who you are? What's interesting about you? And drum those things up and even write them down so that you have a story about kind of your experience and why you're in real estate and what you're passionate about when it comes to real estate and things of that nature. This next one is, to me, the most important. Make an impact, right? I think most of the people, at least I've talked to, want to make an impact as they do real estate. They're in real estate because they like serving and helping people. We all, of course, like money, but I think there's more than that. I think we genuinely like being able to help people navigate this process and make decisions and have an impact in their lives. In order to do that, you've got to know your client. The easiest way to know your client is to know yourself and know who you naturally relate to and who shares the same interests, because then you'll know what's important to them and what's going to be valuable to them. And then live it. Be your brand. Live it every day. Be what you are. Be true to yourself, and show people that, and it will produce results for you. Here's a couple questions. If you want to look at the screen real quick, a couple questions you can ask yourself for the self-evaluation, and then translating that to your ideal client. I would highly encourage you just to take 5-10 minutes today to write some of these types of things down, to say, hey, what are my talents? What are my hobbies? What's my work experience? What's my demographic? Things of that nature. Why are you an agent? And take inventory of that, and then pair that up to, who do I know in my network that has similar talents, similar hobbies, similar work experience, similar demographic, and connect to your particular story. These are the people you should be really focusing on building a relationship with first and foremost. These people will refer you business even though you haven't done business for them. Even though they've never bought or listed a home with you, they're going to tell their friends about you because you have this close relationship. You know them, they like you, they trust you, you share the same interests. They're going to refer people to you even if they're not doing business with you themselves. So that is, I'm going to stop sharing. That is a fire hose of information. I tend to talk fast, so hopefully I didn't overwhelm you guys, but that's kind of the fundamental focus of what I learned as I did real estate part-time in order to make it work, and going from hardly doing anything the first year to getting up to 12 transactions a year. That's the thing. Those are the things that became most important, and I had to really refine and focus on. Let's see a couple.
So thank you for that. And I think there's a lot of tips that anybody can take from that. Good reminders, whether you're in it part-time, full-time. Doing 12 transactions while you work another job is a tremendous amount of extra income. And doing 12 transactions doesn't have to be another full-time job if you have the systems in place and the efficiency and you're integrating your real estate into your other work and into your life and into your hobbies, like you mentioned. And I think that's important for everybody to hear, because whether you want to do 12 transactions and not work full-time in this, or you want to triple that because you are working full-time in this, you should be able to really take your life and integrate it in a way in which what you do naturally and what you like to do gets you business. And I think that's the biggest aha for everybody that they can take away, at least that I heard today. I have a quick question though for you, because
and Cari, just so you know, we have some questions in the chat box from the audience.
Oh, awesome. Okay, really quick, take mine last, but in case I don't have great service, the one question I would ask you is, have you seen in your time of coaching certain industries or other jobs that tend to really help those people that want to do real estate alongside something else? In other words, that are a little bit more synergistic, that maybe help with certain skill sets, or there's skill sets that are really comparable, and also maybe just that funnel business, real estate business. I'd be curious from your perspective if you've seen anything that has been kind of stood out to you, or any patterns.
Yeah, that's a great question. Adam, I'm going to get your question too, because I think it's a really good one. It's a great question. So if you're going to be a part-time real estate agent and have a full-time job, it's important that your full-time job has some level of flexibility, right? If you have a job where you're required, like retail is not the greatest job, it can still be done because you're required to go into a store, you're required to be there the entire time. Being able to pull away is almost impossible. So unless you can manage everything outside of your normal work hours, or you have work hours that are not peak hours, right? Like after work in the evenings or on the weekends, which is when most real estate activity, not necessarily most, but that's when most buyers are going to want to go see homes. So if you're going to work with buyers, that's going to be a key limitation. Obviously, anything that is people that are already in sales are naturally going to go here, but really, if you're being authentic, you don't have to be a salesperson. This is more of kind of a coaching, counseling type of a role. And so as long as you're being authentic about yourself and you're looking at the people you relate to, anything's going to work. There's not a particular profession that I think attracts real estate agents more than other. But your full-time job needs to give you the flexibility to pull away when you need to during the day, be able to pull away to take a phone call. Obviously, remote jobs where you work from home are the best because they're going to allow you the flexibility to take a call whenever you want. And if you need to step away, either people aren't going to notice, or they typically tend to allow you to take care of things throughout the day because you can get work done on off hours a little bit easier. Those are the type of things, and hopefully that answers your question, Cari. I don't know if there's a particular industry, or I really don't think it's that pigeonholed. I think anybody can do it as long as your full-time obligation allows you some level of flexibility to pull away. But most people are going to look at you as a realtor and expect you to be busy anyways. So the key here is you need enough time to be able to meet the client's expectations. And depending on your clients, they may have higher expectations. In that case, you need more flexibility. But the clients I was working with in Texas were mostly first-time home buyers, maybe second-time home buyers. That was the majority of what I got, and they were very flexible. They didn't have high expectations. They didn't want me to be responsive. They wanted me to be able to communicate, but they were mostly flexible about the rest of the stuff unless they had a specific urgent need. And when that came up, I asked work to have some time off and have some time away. Told them I had something urgent I had to take care of, and I usually was able to get that.
So we have so we have, what is the total? So you see those from Adam there, Ryan. So he has, it looks like one question has 2 parts and then a second question after that.
Yeah, so what is the total weekly time commitment for being a listing agent part-time? How many hours a week? Do you have any ideas on how to get seller clients as a part-time agent and more? So let me tackle that one. What's the time commitment for being a listing agent part-time? Let me tackle this in 2 parts because you mentioned listing agent specifically. And I might get a lot of reaction on this, but I'm not a fan of saying you're a listing agent or a buying agent. First and foremost, I think that's a disservice to you. You might be on a team maybe that has brought you in as a specific listing agent. Maybe you don't have time in the evenings to work with buyers, and in that situation, that is absolutely okay. As far as the obligation to be a listing and buying agent, which is what I was doing, 5 hours a week is what I got it down to. Maybe on busier weeks, it was 10 hours a week at most, but you really should be able to get your real estate business done in 5 hours or less during the week. That's an hour a day during the week, or an hour or so on the weekend, right? And so it shouldn't require that much time in the beginning. You've got to get some things in place. So it might take you a little bit more time than that. Maybe 10 hours is a little bit more the norm when you first get in, but you should pretty quickly, easily be able to get that down to 5 hours a week. And that's even less than that on times when you're not working with a specific client, like you've just got some basic automation things you got to follow up on, do some relationship outreach. But when you have a transaction happening, you might get closer to the 5, maybe even up closer to the 10 if you've got 2 or 3 going on at the same time, which is possible and totally doable as a part-time agent. Hopefully that answered your question. And how, do you have any ideas on how to get seller clients as a part-time agent? So yes, if you go back to what I talked about earlier, the key to getting seller clients is to nurture the relationships in your immediate network, the people you already know, not just your whole network, but these are the people that share the same interests as you, the people that share the same likes as you, the people you're around all the time. Like you genuinely, the best way to get listings right away and very quickly is to first have as many conversations as you can and talk to as many people as you possibly can. Even if you're in the grocery line, talk to people, say, hey, how are you doing? My name is Ryan, nice to meet you. And you don't have to mention anything about real estate unless the opportunity presents itself. But the key is having conversations and starting to get to know people. The people you already have interest with are more likely to have a conversation like, hey, how's work going? How's the business been? What have you been doing lately? And they will almost always reciprocate a question back to you about, what's going on with your job? What are you up to these days? Then you can share, hey, well, I'm doing real estate now and I'm really enjoying it. I'm able to help people. Not only that, there's some interesting stuff with the market the way it is. I'm able to find some unique ways to open up opportunities for people that they didn't have before. It's really cool. I'm really excited about it. I'm really enjoying it. So on and so forth. And you can, whatever, tailor that specifically to you. But that is really the best way to get seller clients as a part-time agent, because you don't have time to go out and do cold lead generation. Cold lead generation is going to get you a lot of bad leads you got to work through. So unless you're really skilled at filtering out leads, you're going to spend time talking to leads that aren't qualified and are going to spend a ton of your time. Great example, when I came onto EXP, you get Opcity as part of that. I had a cold lead reach out to me today. They wanted a home that was run down, didn't even have running water, anything else. They couldn't get a loan for much. They needed the property more than they needed the house. They were going to put a trailer on it while they tried to fix up the house. But these are people that aren't going to be approved. Number one, the house isn't habitable, and so there's all kinds of challenges of getting a loan for that. They can't do that. They're getting kicked out of their apartment. They only have 60 days. So although I have the flexibility to help them right now, normally that wouldn't be somebody that would be a great use of your time, because they're not going to bring in much income. They're going to steal a whole lot of your time, And the only time I would recommend helping somebody like that is if you have a real passion or desire to just serve and you don't care about the money because you've got a full-time job that's paying you and you can afford to spend time on people like that. So cold lead generation will burn a lot of time. I would focus on nurturing your network, investing time doing that. Third part of your question, what are good full-time work shifts to work as a part-time agent? I think the obvious answer here is anything that allows you to be available in the evenings or the weekends. The only caveat I'm going to throw out there is if your network, if the people that you relate to have different hours than that, maybe you're a real nighttime person and that's when most of the social interaction happens. That's when most of the people are available to do things, then your nights need to be available. If you're a daytime person and there's lots of social activity and for whatever reason, what you do at night, maybe you're a bartender, maybe you're a club owner or work at a club or something similar to that, and everything happens at night and during the day, most of the people you know are available, then you're going to need to be available during that time. And so that will be the key in dictating what your schedule needs to be. Is it needs to fairly well match up with the people that you have the most commonality with, and those are going to be the people you work with the most. And what do you recommend for someone who had never done a listing before and wants to become a solid part-time listing agent, as you mentioned? So I think with you or any agent that's new and hasn't done a transaction, number one, just educate. Learn as much as you can. And most importantly, learn about the process, because your clients are going to want you to know what the process is and how it works. Clients get the most upset when you don't explain something and it's a surprise and you don't know what's next and you're not able to communicate with them on what's next and what to plan for, and you're not able to follow up and make sure they're doing the parts they need to be doing. I would say first and foremost, understand the process, understand how it works, what they're going to expect through the whole process so that you can explain it clearly and communicate through the whole thing. I am a fan of being honest with them right at the gate. Like, hey, this is my first transaction, but I have an entire brokerage team that is part of this, that is supporting me. So you're not just getting me, you're getting a whole team of professionals who have a ton of industry experience. And if your brokerage knows how many years of experience total they have, throw it out there like, hey, if you took all our agents collectively, we have 100 years of experience in real estate. That's what you get by using me as your listing agent. And whether I have the answer or not, we're going to get it. We've got enough experts on our team. We're going to make sure that we deal with it right, and we're going to get you what you need and do it the way you need it done. And to me, that's the key, is just having that level of confidence. I think where new agents fail is they try to be something they're not. They try to pretend they're a real estate expert before they're a real estate expert. You don't have to be a real estate expert. You've got to be a great customer service person. You have to have great follow-up. You've got to have clear communication. You got to know where to go to get the answers. Like, those three things alone are far more important than knowing everything there is to know about real estate. And if you can manage the process really effectively and get the answers and have the resources as far as service providers, contractors, handymen, all those types of things, build a network of service providers. If you can do those things, it doesn't matter how much you know about real estate. As long as you know how to get the information, you'll be very successful. Where is the best place to get listing education? I'm going to assume that relates to what I said about the process. So if you're already in a brokerage, they're going to have a specific process as far as how their transactions flow through. That's where I would start. You can also talk to a lender. If you don't have a relationship with a lender yet, you need one, 2 or 3, honestly. Get some lenders and sit down and take them to lunch and have some conversations. Or once you start getting a relationship with a lender or show them you're interested, I've had lenders often take me to lunch. So you might get a free lunch out of the deal. But the important part is to say, hey, what's the process on an FHA loan? What are the things I need to be aware of? So talk to lenders. They'll give you really good detail on how the loan process works. And then your broker should be the person you're talking to about the transaction process. Like, hey, what are the things, what are the key elements and time points in the transaction in order to know exactly how, when you get a client, you want to know exactly what's going to happen once they start going through that process so that you can make them aware and follow up as needed.
Also, if all of you guys are here in EXP Family Tree, if you're not a guest and you're here at EXP, go ahead and look up John Dietz and just search his name in the EXP Family Tree Workplace group. I've done multiple listing trainings with him and all live streams, and they stay here. He's also doing one live with us again at the end of this month, the last Wednesday of the month. And so he also has a Facebook group and does a ton of training, listing training, scripting there. So there's tons of listing training scripts. You can actually look in, there's a listing presentation workplace group that you can actually look under the files, and people share a lot of great scripts and different things. There's for sale by owner and expired listing groups here in workplace. So really, if you want to hone that skill, I would peruse workplace, join all the groups that surround listings, look in the files, go to the trainings, rewatch the live streams if you can't attend them live. There's literally hours upon hours upon hours of listing training for free for you here at EXP if you're within EXP. And I think, Adam, you're asking these questions, so that gives you that opportunity. And then, you know, having someone who is going to help you through your first listings. And as a new agent at EXP, you're required to have a mentor. So you'll have a mentor for your first three. And, you know, we help match you up with those people appropriately, or the broker team will as well. So those are just a couple side notes that I wanted to bring up specifically if you happen to be here within our EXP world. So. But man, YouTube, right, Ryan? You can just YouTube, and there's so many different people out there with scripts and, you know, presentations, and it's just kind of crazy, all of the resources we have, you know, at our fingertips nowadays.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as great as that is, it's also a challenge for part-time agents specifically, because there's almost too much information to really get through. And you may go through one listing training and then you'll go through another and they'll totally conflict with each other, or they'll share different viewpoints on where you should be investing your time and your energy. And that's where it becomes really hard. You want to make sure you're in part of a brokerage and you make connections with people who understand your experience. The bigger brokerages tend to have a harder time with part-time agents. They'll carry you. They have lots of training. They have lots of stuff you can invest time in. The problem is it's built for full-time real estate. And so there's there's almost this assumption that you have a lot of time. And so you can invest time in all these trainings and all these things. And they're all very valuable. They're all very important. But as a part-time agent, you have to pick what's relevant to you and when you're going to digest it and how much time you've got. You can't fire hose it as a part-time agent where you're just going to get overwhelmed and burn out.
And so that's so true. And I bet you, Ryan, that's how people really have found value in your coaching, is because you have really understand the bandwidth of a part-time agent and just honing in on like the most important thing, getting really efficient, not having too many squirrels to be chasing, and then just really getting into action, right? Finding somebody that already knows you, likes you, and trusts you, get a listing going, work with them, use that to gain your confidence and to get some of your systems in place and to actually learn. And then, you know, you learn every time you do, as long as you've got some mentorship or some coaching or some leadership around you. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really the key, is getting the right people in place. Adam, if you want to talk about this further, just message me either through Facebook. I'll put in the thing the link to my group. And it's somewhat marketing heavy because I had a big thing going, but it's now just turning into a group. So maybe rebranding soon, but I will put that in here. But just message me. I'm not sure from a listing education perspective what type of education specifically you're looking for. It might be a broad thing. You might be saying, hey, I'm going to be a listing agent. I just want to know, what do I need to know? In which case we can talk about what that looks like. But the biggest thing is going to be, what's the process? Obviously, you're going to have to be able to understand how to market and price a home. So that's going to be a key piece, and that doesn't have to take up a lot of time to learn. It can be simplified into a process that's very easy to understand. And I'm happy to walk you through any of those things. I don't mind at all. So reach out to me and I'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Well, I think this was amazing. It is live streamed, as you guys know, and that's one thing that I think helps part-time agents here in EXP is that we live stream everything. So if it doesn't work with your schedule and you can't watch it at the time we're doing it live, you can always go back and watch it later. And, you know, you don't have to miss an important meeting anymore because everything is live streamed. I mean, even most of the broker teams, even though they're doing them live in the world, will live stream them into Workplace so people can watch them later. And the value is infinite for all people that have busy lives and businesses, but definitely for those that are working another job, because you can really, as you are being directed and focused to the things that matter, you can make sure you don't miss those important things. But as a part-time agent or a full-time agent, you can spend a lot of time researching and learning and then not doing. And that is not a recipe for success either. So there's a fine line. And I think that if anybody is resonating with what Ryan is saying, definitely go find his Facebook group. Like he said, he's going to be doing some different things in there now moving forward and sharing some of his experiences starting in a new market that will also be synergistic if you're starting in a new market or just starting in general. And, you know, we're all resources for you. You know, you can always work chat me. I love this discussion. I know we'll have Ryan back in here and we can talk, maybe pinpoint a few of these specific pieces and dive a little bit deeper into them. But I think this is a great place to start to get you thinking, okay, how am I organizing my time? And knowing, I think that it is possible to sell a home a month or more and work 5 or 10 hours a week. It really truly is, but you have to get very, very good at time management. You have to get very focused. And the best place to go look for those pieces of business is integrated in your life and your business already, so that you're not having to do two things. You're really kind of just integrating them together. And it really makes it a lot easier. But I think that's a lesson learned for all of us that are in real estate, because some of the most successful agents I've ever known have really just made it part of their life. And those that they spend time with, is where they get the bulk of their business. And so that's where it becomes inspiring, is that if you're feeling a little bit lost, like, how am I going to do this part-time? I haven't been able to transition full-time, or I've been a little bit slow, so I'm thinking of getting another job. You can have some hope that it's possible and there's resources available to you. So I hope, if nothing else, you walk away with that feeling. And thank you so much for sharing what you did and your story and some of your tips, Ryan. And I know you'll probably have some more followers on Facebook. You guys can work chat either of us as well. And as always, we appreciate you being here. Same with all of you guys live streaming. If you have any comments later, I'll continue to monitor that. Make sure I connect you with Ryan if need be.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Cari.
Thanks, you
Appreciate
guys.
you guys taking the time.
Thank you. See you.